We're on.
Happy week 7, fam. We are halfway through the season. How does it feel? Hopefully it feels good. This week, I have a special guest with me for the week 7 recap. Her name is Allison, and she will give you the rest of how she is related to everybody right now.
Yeah. Well, married to Greg. And
+2.
yeah. And related to Sam, that's my cousin. And everybody else, I mean, I'm not gonna waste time with that, but Zach is a brother-in-law, Casey's a brother-in-law, Samantha's a sister-in-law, Bob is a brother-in-law, Andy's the uncle. Did I miss anybody?
Yeah, why do you call your brother a cousin?
Did I say cousin?
Yeah.
No, I don't know why I said cousin. It's my brother.
Okay. That was weird. Okay. Well, yes, you are heavily related in this family. So how long have you been playing fantasy football?
How many weeks have we been doing this?
7.
That's how long I've been doing it.
All right. Good job. You and Tyler are in the same boat at that point.
Yeah.
Whose jersey are you repping there?
Soccer, United States, U.S. women's national team. It's a big reason why I have Zach Ertz on my team, because his wife is Julie Ertz, the U.S. women's soccer player.
Yeah.
He's not doing great.
I want to say,
can't let him go.
He's doing all right. Ertz isn't bad. But I know that Julie is one of your brother's favorite, or your cousin's favorite, whoever you want to call him.
I really don't remember saying cousin, but I guess we'll have to look at the replay. So I don't.
We're going to throw the replay flag. It's that one replay flag that we get to do in that commercial just now. That's what we'd have. So what's one piece of advice you have as a newbie? What's one piece of advice you might have for others?
I guess the biggest piece is just to keep listening and seeing what everybody's chattering about and kind of like doing a little bit of research on the players. I think for me, like when you guys are talking about all of these different players, I'm like, I have no idea who you're talking about and what player, like what position they play. And so that's been like a big challenge for me. So really trying to like get to know the players a little bit more and kind of like the ins and outs of them, who they play for, and kind of the different like combinations, and we'll kind of get into like the bye week stuff, but kind of how that really impacts like your play and point values. So I think it's just more of like listening and learning and trying to kind of figure out where I fit in with all of this, because I'm very out of my element.
All right. Well, that is some advice.
Okay, I'm a newbie. What advice am I going to give you? Thanks for ripping on me. Come on.
Yep. I would give you an embarrassing story about you, but you've already embarrassed yourself by calling your brother your cousin.
Might as well just keep it going. Might as well.
No, I honestly don't. I don't have anything on hand right now. There's just too many embarrassing things for you.
Wow.
But I think we're together so often that they're just like constant embarrassment. So
right,
that's just where it goes. All right. Well, enough about you, young lady.
Well,
now we are. No, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
See, you guys, we've been together so long. We just, finish each other's
sandwiches.
Thank you. Okay, thank goodness. That would have been real embarrassing for me again. So getting into the ass whooping of the week, we have getting pits.
Oh, are you the host? Are you the host now? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, it's all about role reversal, everybody. Keep it fresh.
Because clearly this is the thing that I can like actually speak to a little bit. So trying to get my I don't know, whatever. It's late, guys.
Okay.
So getting pits on is you, Greg. You had 147 points against Bob's bandwagon, 317. 88 points. So that was a pretty big point differential. And most of Bob's points came from defense and from Eckler. And that's it. So you have a ton, like, I mean, James Robinson got him 0 points. He had 0 yards, and most of Bob's team was on bye. So they were all like, good luck, Bob. So
Yeah, they
like,
said bye.
yeah, they're like, bye. So with all of like these bye weeks that are coming up, which is again another level of stress for me, because I'm like, who am I supposed to play instead? So what tips or advice do you have when like bye weeks come up and for those types of players?
Eee, honestly, it's funny because I'm somebody who tries to draft my team where I don't have that happen. You'll probably even notice, like with all the running backs that I got, literally every single one of them has a different bye week, and I do that so that way, like every week, I know I have good running backs. So it's not like, oh man, I'm going to lose this week. Now at the same time, it's not bad. I mean, it's like
Mhm.
I got lucky because Bob's top players were all out, but moving forward, he's gotten his bye weeks out of the way and he can just kind of wreck through stuff. So sometimes you just kind of take the L and knowing they don't have many people. And you can also look at your bye guys that are on bye and say, have they really helped me as much as they could? Could I find somebody different? Like if I'm Bob, is Dawson Knox a best tight end out there? Is there anybody that's in the free agency that would have been more helpful to him? Like he could have probably looked at that, but a lot of his other players, he probably wouldn't have. I mean, Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith and Stephon Diggs, like those are big players that you're always going to play. Devin Singletary, I mean, the guys that you want on your team, you're not going to just get rid of them. But that's the two things I think about. I think about so next year in this league when you're drafting, that might be something that you look at if you felt like it impacted you poorly. Or like I said, take a true look at your team and say, like, does this guy help me? Can I drop him? Will people want to pick him up if I drop him? Or could I just pick him right back up the next week? And that could be what happens.
Yeah, lots of things to think about for that piece that again, I think being new is kind of tough for me to like think about the ins and outs of that. But again, listening and learning and looking at Bob, I am learning not to have a lot of players on the same team. Um, so with you though, you had Ken Walker with 34 points and Kittle, the tight end, with 19, which seems pretty high for a tight end. So that was awesome. And then the wide receiver Hopkins with like 16 points, which kind of like led your team. And I did see that you picked up the Miami defense, but I learned that you are actually it's called streaming your defense. And you said that was due to the Kansas City and San Francisco matchup. And I actually had to Google what streaming was because I'm like, well, that doesn't sound right. I don't understand what that means. And it's so for those of you that do know, good for you. For those that are like, I have no idea what they're talking about. I thought that was like something that Netflix does. It means like playing somebody based on the matchup versus their true skill. So that, excuse me, Iris, thank you. So that does kind of make sense to me, whereas like you're doing it because I might be better with this matchup or not playing somebody because I'm going to get crushed in this matchup. Is that like accurate in that? Like anything else to share about that piece?
Yeah, like San Francisco's defense is a really good defense. However, Kansas City's offense is a great offense. And so it did become it's that challenge of when you have a great defense going against a great offense, you gotta kind of gotta pick. And so for me, usually I don't like that matchup, especially with Mahomes. I think he's just such a good player,
Really
and
good.
their team is so versatile that there's not somebody they're just trying to shut down. So I just felt like that was a better way to go, and it ended up working out for me because I think San Fran got like -4 points, but I had a second week in a row where a defense cost me points, and then Miami got 11, if I'm not mistaken. And I was afraid because Bob's defense had 2 touchdowns for his defense, and so he had like 12 points. Like I was like, that's a good amount to start his time frame. But Miami did well against an unfortunate Pittsburgh offense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that kind of, I mean, moves into nail biter of the week, but we really didn't have a nail biter of the week.
No.
So that's easy. The shift
Second
now.
week in a row, by the way. Second week in
Yeah,
a row, there's no nail biter. That's unfortunate.
I know. I was gonna say I was like looking at mine because I always get stressed out about like it, even though it was still like a decent point difference, I guess, with Andy, but Andy always makes me nervous with like I know that he's done this for a long time. And so yeah, that's just it was nerve-wracking for me still. But let's get into more of the remaining game highlights. Let's highlight them. So we have Sam with Sukadika versus Zach's Obi-Wan Mahomey. So tell us about that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Sam, all of his pieces came back. You got lucky last week, kind of similar with the bye piece where you didn't face two of his main running backs. Well, they were back this week, just in case everybody wanted to know. And he added Benjamin. The funny part is that Benjamin, the running back for the Arizona Cardinals, who is basically playing while their main starting running back is out. He had the best game of the four running backs that Sam put out there, but they basically averaged 20 points, I think, and they were all pretty close to each other. So I mean, I think it was like 18 points for Dameon Pierce up to like 23 points for Eno. So and the other two guys landed between that. So that's 80 points right there just from his four running backs. So that was tough. Plus, if I'm not mistaken, Jamar Chase went off again. I think that's the second week in a row where Jamar Chase went nuts. Scored 30 points. So there's 110 points amongst 5 players, and you got 4 more players to add to that. Like, that's devastating to go into. And that's what I was saying, I think either last week or 2 weeks ago, which is like what scared me the most. I think it was when I was talking to Sam, was like his team really was doing great, and everybody was kind of worried, and they weren't even doing that great because his wide receivers were just putting average games in. And I'm like, well, once these wide receivers get going and you got these running backs, like he's going to have a really tough team to beat this year. And then on Zach's side, I think it's just tough. I mean, Mahomes can only do so much at this point, and Zach's got a good team. It's just, one of those times where guys just aren't firing. I mean, trust me, I felt that earlier in this season, so I get it.
Yeah, and his defense, I don't know if you were talking about his defense, but he got -2 points with Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's a tough call. I mean, it looked like a good matchup, but didn't turn out to be that way. So that's just a tough one.
Skill versus luck.
Yeah.
So then the next matchup we had Shemmy Dogs versus Aquarius Grapefruit. What were some key takeaways with that game?
Yeah, that one, I mean, another kind of blowout. I mean, I think that's one where without Josh Allen, it's really tough. And, I think, he's feeling a lot of trade offers right now, Kyle is, but it's for a good reason. And I kind of hope that, not to speak just to myself, but others who are offering, like, you got to look at this is why depth matters, because, you can't just rely on one or two guys, because what happened, I think before it was Leonard Fournette and Josh Allen carrying his team, really helping because they both would have monster weeks. But others wouldn't have. It just would be tough on the other side. So when you have Allen out and then Leonard Fournette got like 6 points, not even 6 points, that's going to be tough for his team at that moment when those are the two guys that were really carrying him. On Tyler's side, it's just literally solid, kind of like all the way around, except for Burrow, who went nuts.
Yeah, that was 42, almost 45 or 43 points.
Yeah, just went crazy, and so Burrow's just been hot lately and looks to continue it. Looks like they've kind of changed up their offense a little bit, which is a good thing for everybody that's involved in that offense. But Burrow had a huge game, and he had solid games from other players. So again, when you have a guy going off for 40 plus, that's kind of tough to beat at times. So
yeah, sorry, Kyle. Maybe one day. Then we have myself, field goal versus Andy's Omaha Colt Fins.
Yeah. How'd you feel about that game?
Well, I don't know. I always stress, like, it's so funny because I always made fun of you when you were like playing fantasy and watching these games, and like I don't understand why you're so stressed. Like, it's just a game. And now here I am living it. I'm like, it's so stressful. And it is just a game, but still, like, we don't get to watch all of the games. We don't have access to all of them. So it's a lot of times like I'm watching whatever is available and then kind of like watching my players and seeing how well or how terrible they're doing. And I mean, even if we are like close in points or like it's projected where like he's winning or I'm winning, whatever it is, like no matter who I'm playing, but like with Andy especially, I was like, he could like come back. Like I could have a player that just doesn't do well and then I lose when I'm in the lead. So I try to not have like that like overly confident of like I'm totally gonna win, even though I said Andy, good luck to everybody but Andy. And then he's like, that's gonna come back and get you. And I'm like, oh, it might. So just like, yeah, I always get so stressed and nervous like watching these because like I said, as I'm getting to know all of the players and the games and that how it all like flows together. I don't know if I'm going to stay up or not. Good job, Andy.
Well, you're also realizing that it's so funny, it's not linear, right? The scoring isn't a linear scoring, and that's why projections don't matter, because
Mhm.
you could be just doing shit, and then it ends up turning in your favor. I think about that actually with so Andy and I play daily fantasy. We do a matchup against each other every Sunday, and the main slate, it's called the main slate. That's the noon games and the afternoon games all combined, and you pick basically a team from that. And we played each other, and he was kicking my ass. Like, I didn't think I'd have any shot to beat him, but Ken Walker went off again, and for both my running backs, and he had Ken Walker and Josh Jacobs. Well, we'll get to Josh Jacobs here in a second from another game, but I had both those guys, and they played the later games, and they turned it on. I mean, both of them were high scoring. I ended up winning this week. So now Andy and I are 2-2. So we're 2-2 against each other so far this year. But you're right. It gets to be stressful because I look at it as David Montgomery could have had a great game, and if the Bears and the Patriots teams were flipped, like the Bears forced 4 turnovers. Like, I don't know what they scored in total points, but if you flip those 2 games, if Montgomery scores what Ramondre scored, and the New England defense does what the Bears defense did. I mean, that's actually a close game. That's not, that's actually truly a nail biter at that point. And that, to your point, is like why you can get so nervous. And you paid attention. You watched the game, at least the first half.
I did. Well, and I mean, even with like Stevenson, him being able to get that touchdown, and what the Patriots, like Zappy, is that how you say his name? I don't know, Zap.
Yeah.
How he had like a few launchers, and then I'm like, okay, well, hopefully then they give the ball to like Stevenson for him to kind of get in, and he like walked it right in. So that was exciting to see that. So yeah, just as much as I stress out, I also get like super pumped. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I can relax for a second.
Did you just call his passes launchers? I love it.
Yeah.
It's so cute. I'm sorry, that was adorable.
I don't know all the lingo.
Launchers.
I had to look up screaming. No, like, I know nothing.
Oh man.
So moving on away from me, because this is fun.
Yes, we will.
You
Yeah.
have Lecho Lodges and Cases Aces.
Oh yeah, that was where Josh Jacobs came into play, and unfortunately, Josh Jacobs plays for Cases Aces. So they had a guy who scored 40 points as a running back. I mean, that's amazing. He's just been crushing it lately. I think he's gotten like each of the last 3 games, he scored like 30, 35 plus points for them. And they're still unfortunately not winning. Like, they've got good players, it's some of the things are tough, it's Mark Andrews did nothing in this game. Like, Mark Andrews has been the number 2 tight end all year behind Kelsey, and those 2 are like well ahead of everybody else. And Mark Andrews is averaging 15 to 20 points a game. He got him like half a point.
Yeah.
Like, that was really bad. I mean, he just like had some unfortunate stuff happen where it just kind of been a down time. And what Zach has talked about before, of getting frustrated and over it. You just, even when you have good teams, it doesn't mean they're going to perform that way. It doesn't,
Yeah.
players go through slumps. They're humans. I think we want them to be these robots and say these projections mean that's what I'm going to do, and it's not at all what happens. So it's a very really tough one there. But Louis, I mean, you can say the same thing about him. Like, Lamar Jackson didn't have a good game again. Like, and Lamar was kind of carrying him in the first few weeks, but Louis like had some strong performances, and I actually think that Louis has been one of the best at picking up good players. Like, he picked up Juju Smith-Schuster when Zach dropped him. Louis picked him up, and he's actually played well the 2 weeks that Louis had him. He's played great.
Yeah.
He picked up Deonta Foreman. He didn't play him, but Deonta Foreman is the backup running back, or was the backup running back to Christian McCaffrey in Carolina. Well, now that Christian McCaffrey, the running back for Carolina, was traded to the San Francisco 49ers, that means that Deonta Foreman now becomes like one of their top running backs. Him and Chuba Hubbard together combined in that backfield. But that was a great pickup, and I think Deonta Foreman almost would have had 20 points. So if he played him, that's a great play, and it's a good pickup right there. I think there was Tyler Lockett. That was another one that Louis has picked up through this season that actually played well. He's an up and down player, but he's a really good player. And so when you play him in the right weeks, he can do well for you. So I think Louis has been like under the radar, doing really well at these pickups.
Well, and I had a question, and I mean, you can always shoot it down if we're pressed for time, but with all of these trades happening like between the NFL, like actual teams, like not us, like how does that impact like picking up players or then dropping players if you're like, okay, if I had this player on my team because I knew my quarterback was throwing to him all the time or passing him the ball, like how does that impact like your strategy for your team?
That's actually a great question. I know, for example, it impacted both me and Zach this week because when Christian McCaffrey was traded like on a Thursday, he's going to play for the team on a Sunday. Like he's gotten no practice time with them. He gets no reps. You don't know what he's going to do, but he's also one of the most talented players in the NFL. And he actually did well when he got the ball.
He did
So
play,
he looked good. He did play. He looked good when he had it, but he just didn't play that much. Like they had a rotation for him, and that made sense.
Right.
So like that first week back, it's tough. But you really just have to – it impacts on both sides. So another trade that just happened was James Robinson got traded to the Jets from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's a running back. So Breece Hall, unfortunately, we'll get to him and injuries here in a moment, but he unfortunately is out for the season now. That's really unfortunate because he was a great rookie running back that was doing really well for Tyler's team. And now so the Jets wanted to continue like their success. They're oddly 5-2 as a normally terrible team in the NFL, and so they ended up trading for James Robinson, who was a tandem running back in the backfield of Jacksonville. Well, that impacts two teams now, so that helps hopefully Bob, who actually has James Robinson, because Bob can tell you he scored 0 points this week, right? So he scored 0 points, had an awful game, and hopefully now Bob looks at it like, well, instead of dropping this guy, I actually can keep him, and hopefully that he gets some playing time in Jackson and with the Jets, which he will, and he'll have some contribution there, so he doesn't become a waste of talent there. But on the other side, Andy has Travis Etienne, who was the other running back in Jacksonville. Well, now he's the only running back in Jacksonville. JaMycal Hasty, he could be a pickup for people, but they're basically saying we want to go with Etienne, and he's gonna get the ball even more. He's been playing well, so that impacts both teams, hopefully positively. But Etienne gets a big bump, so that's a big help for Andy at this point, and Bob at least doesn't feel like he has to drop a player. But it impacts everybody differently. I mean, it just depends on the player that's being traded. I mean, Russell Wilson got traded to the Denver Broncos. Everyone thought that might be a good thing for these receivers, and look how shitty that guy is. He's now Andy dropped him. And I think in other leagues I have, he's on the waivers, like, and people aren't picking him up. So it can go either way. So it's pretty interesting to kind of see it. But usually with running backs, when they're training for that, like they're using running backs. With the other pieces, like it can be tough. Like a wide receiver, you never know how they're going to fit in. But running backs, you're getting them usually for a reason.
Gotcha. We do have a 10-minute warning. So let's move into our next topic, which is the impactful injuries. And I think for me, like, I know that Tua was a huge like conversation piece because he went out like badly. And so he was out for a couple of weeks. Is that impacting like the concussion protocol at all for other players?
I mean, yeah, I think you played Andy this week, and he had Amon-Ra St. Brown, the wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, who on his very first catch of the game got hit hard, and they thought he was concussed, and they held him out. And it's so funny because they held him out for the rest of the game. Like, he didn't play. So you notice, like, he didn't get any points for Andy. That really hurt. He played him, but then it comes out, I think yesterday it came out that he didn't have a concussion. So he was ruled to actually not sustain a concussion. Which is the good news for Andy, meaning that he'll be available for him this week. But the bad news is, like, to me, they're really, I shouldn't say the bad news. I think it's actually good for the health of these players that you're holding them out. I mean, I don't think it's smart to do that. I mean, you think about like a boxer. Like, a boxer shouldn't go fight a fight, get his brains beat in, and then go fight another fight a week later. Like, that doesn't. It's not the same exact thing. I mean, boxers are truly getting beaten in the head, but it can be similar
or in
to
soccer.
that. So I mean, I think it's smart. Yeah, or in soccer, whatever. These headers are so dangerous. What they are. I shouldn't say that. I know they are. Or kick in the face, yeah.
All right. What other injuries to note?
Yeah, Brees Hall I had mentioned. He's out for the
Right.
year. It's unfortunate. David Njoku is a tight end, and Louis has him, and he's actually been a really good tight end this year. I have him in a couple leagues. He has a high ankle sprain. That's actually a big bummer for those of us who have him as a tight end because he's been actually a really cheap and good tight end. I mean, Louis got him off of free agency. I think I got him off free agency in both my leagues too, because the first week he sucked, so people dropped him. But he's done well since then. That's a big one. Mike Williams, who I unfortunately traded to Tyler, he's out with a high ankle sprain. He's probably out 2 to 5 weeks as well. That's usually about the time frame is like 2 to 5
Okay.
weeks for high ankle sprains. And then I wrote down one more, which is DK Metcalf. He's a wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. He left with a patellar tendon injury, is what they called it, but it
Ooh.
seems like he's like day to day. So I don't know if he's going to play this week or not, but that could mean a good boost to Tyler Lockett on Louis' team, as well as maybe some pickups for other people to get. Hopefully for me, that means Ken Walker gets more carries. That's what I'm hoping. But those are some of the notable injuries that I had for this week.
Okay. Well, you talked about like picking people up. So let's kind of get into any weekly transactions like trades or potential free agents that happened this week.
Yeah. So I know that Tyler and I had a trade. I thought it helped both sides. And Zach keeps harping on the fact that it made me better. And yeah, that's the whole point of me trading somebody is to make me better. But I think it made him better because Mike Williams went out and scored 18 plus points for him. I mean, he's his best wide receiver on the day. I mean, he ends up winning that, handily. And technically, Mike Williams scored more than Kyler Murray, the guy I traded for. So, I mean, you can't foresee an injury, so that part's unfortunate. But like, he's a good player. He did what he was supposed to do. So I think when you're going to do a trade, to me, that's important. It's important that both sides get something that they need. And that's why oftentimes you'll see me not trading like player for like player. I don't trade a quarterback for another quarterback. I mean,
Yeah.
we're just guessing on what we're doing here. No, we should be trading for what that team needs. That's kind of what Kyle was saying in the text today was like, this is what I'm asking for. I love that. I think that's a great way to go about it. Kudos to you, Kyle, for saying, hey, I want this, this, and this. That's what's going to take, especially when you're Josh Allen. You better come with some freaking capital if you think you're going to get Josh Allen, stuff like that. So
And I think
that
it's
happened.
No, I was gonna
No,
say
go
like
ahead.
it's hard too because like I feel like I have a decent team, and so if I see like a potential player that I want to add to my team, it's hard to lose a player when I feel like they've been doing so good and like I get comfortable with what I have because it's what I know. And so then being able to trade like somebody that I feel like is good and is consistently putting up numbers and consistently getting the ball, like I'm not really worried about like touchdowns just because that's an inconsistent stat for me. But like it's hard for me to let go of good talent, but sometimes you gotta, I think it was you that might have said it, like you gotta give talent to get talent. So Kyle, let me know about that trade that I keep trying to renegotiate with you because
Yeah, what I found is it's uncomfortable to trade, especially when you're trying to get really good players. And so often people just undercut you, and it's uncomfortable because like not even close, not even close. Like I don't, almost don't want to deal with somebody at that point. But if you come with the idea that like I'm trying to get this player because I'm trying to make my team better, like I'm going to have to give up something that
yeah.
I don't want to give up. That it feels uncomfortable to give up. So that's a really good point. And that kind of leads into the free agent side of it because I have now Ken Walker, who I've had for 2 weeks now. He scored 22 points last week in our league, and he scored 34 points or something close to that this week. Something crazy. And I mentioned that because I was third in the waiver and I got him, and that he should have been the number one thing. Now, people just don't maybe know the sport as well, but I know that we talked him up on that podcast. So hopefully you'll watch the podcast. But that's somebody where you do have to let go of some people just taking the risk that this guy is going to be that, and he could be what we call a league winner, which is like these undercover people that come in randomly throughout the year
Yeah.
and can take over. So he could be that. Some of the players I wrote down, I know we're running out of time, but
Yeah.
some running backs that you, like literally I can't see it because just you all know like more audio issues, but she's running. How much time do we have?
I think we got like 2 minutes. So
Okay, so we'll go into this real quick. So running backs, I would go with, you've got Latavius Murray, you have Michael Carter out there now that Brees Hall is injured and he's gone. Chuba Hubbard with Christian McCaffrey going. Chase Edmonds, you have Gus Edwards, who kind of had a really good game this week, coming off an ACL injury, playing for Baltimore. A couple wide receivers. We've mentioned George Pickens multiple times. Another guy might feel uncomfortable to have. Tyler Boyd, who's a number 3 wide receiver for Cincinnati. He's had a couple great games. He usually has some flashes, but if T. Higgins or Jamar Chase go down, he's a great guy to have. And then tight ends for Njoku replacement. Greg Dulcich is a great one, and Robert Tonyan, two good options this week for that. Just to go quickly, upcoming matchup, I highlighted myself. Like my game with Sam is going to be a big one. We're the 2 highest scorers this week. We've both been on a trend. I think he's won 4 of his last 5. I won my last 4. So I think it's going to be a really crucial matchup and one that we both want to win badly. So that's some good ones coming up. Other ones are, Andy and Zach face off their veterans. You've got a couple others of like Shemy Dogs and Leacho both, won last week. I think that's going to be a good one. DeQuair is trying to get off the snide here. DeQuair is trying to get back into the win column. That's always big. And then you play some AC next week as well, which I think Casey has a better team than what's gone on in his record. So some good matchups coming up. Sorry to run through that real quick, but I know we're running out of time.
We got like a minute left, so you hit it pretty
You
well.
want to
Wrap it up with the comments of the week. Comments of the week goes to my brother, Sam. And it was when he basically had some smack talk and he's like, oh, I totally could have won even if I had that 15-point penalty. And so that was a pretty good one there. I will. But yeah, keep smack talks coming. I'm looking forward to reading the 175 unread messages and try to catch up with everything when busy doing other stuff. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun being a part of this. Thanks for having me on. Sorry I super embarrassed you. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
everybody.
everybody.
And good luck next week or this week, next week.
Yeah, week 8. Here we come, everybody. Good luck.
Bye.